Hello and welcome to the Warp Shelf. I'm Frank Duran.
I'm Deshaun Vasquez.
And today we're talking Christmas. We're doing another Christmas episode. I can't believe it. It seems like I can't believe it's been a year since we did the Tokyo Godfathers episode. So please check that episode out. Go all the way back and check that out. Scroll on your audio platform and find that Christmas episode. Even though this has nothing to do with it, we wanted to do more anime Christmas, but Deshaun really called me out. He was like, "You haven't seen this one Christmas movie. You have to see it." And this was always a major hole in my movie knowledge. I have always, it's always been something where I say I haven't seen Gremlins and people are like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I just haven't seen it." Like, it just hasn't happened yet. I'm not trying to be, anything, but I really, Gremlins has been just this kind of hole. I realize that it's kind of a dark movie. My mom would not like it, so something we would not watch with my mom growing up. And then my dad was not a big fan of it, so it's like one of those things that my parents weren't gonna watch it.
Yeah, can you tell that this and Temple of Doom were one of the reasons PG-13 was created as a rating?
Yes, I was going to bring that up later, is that, yes, this is, like, Temple of Doom, of course, went, Galima.
Yeah.
Like, you ripped a man's heart out and held it on screen. Of course, they were like, that's not PG anymore. So we got PG-13.
But you didn't say fuck. So what is this?
What is this? This I want to say that was the most fun part about this movie, is how kind of like let loose it really is.
Mm-hmm.
It's just straight up like wanton violence, chaos, craziness the whole time. Well, not the whole time. At least at the very end. And I definitely think that's what's really fun about this movie, and what makes it obviously a lasting movie that people are like, "Hey Frank, why didn't you see Gremlins yet?" Is because of is it Gizmo? It's Gizmo.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Mogwai, but it's Gizmo is the real hero of this. Steven Spielberg saw it,
which is least like, to be honest, it's at least 60% of the design inspiration for Grogu. You can't.
Right. You can't. Yeah, exactly. They obviously knew what was up, but like, there's a reason why this movie, even though it had all these big people behind it, why it has lasted so long. First off, it's a very weird Christmas movie, and I think that will always help a movie when it's a Christmas movie and it's just weird as fuck. Like, I think that is.
I mean, man can't survive on just like The Grinch and It's a Wonderful Life every fucking year, or a Christmas Story. You get sick of shit. You want something that's a little more counterculture, a little more fucked up.
Yeah, and I would say that's kind of what this is. And I guess it's less fucked up than what it originally was. So if you don't know, Gremlins is written by Christopher Columbus, who went on to direct Home Alone 1 and 2, and then the Harry Potter, first two Harry Potter movies.
Yeah, the first two.
And
basically, he also directed Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah,
he was really big in like the 90s and like early 2000s.
Yeah, when he was, because
like
he was basically
movies.
a John Hughes like a prodigy almost. It's like John Hughes wanted to work with him, and so did Spielberg.
I think he also did the remake of Miracle on 34th Street. I think that was him too.
Oh, sorry, wow, I stuttered the fuck out there. But I think that that's what's cool about this movie is Christopher Columbus and his sensibilities on this. And his unashamed, like, I'm going to put wanton violence in children's movies, and you're just like, Jesus Christ, Chris Columbus. But what's also cool about this is Joe Dante's on this. Joe Dante's the director of Gremlins, and I love Joe Dante for a lot of reasons, but Small Soldiers is one of my major reasons. I thought Small Soldiers was so cool as a kid. Like,
Yeah, I always like Small Soldiers too. And even though like it was mostly kind of compromised by the studio, it's
yeah,
why I have a soft spot for Looney Tunes Back in Action, which isn't great, but the reason I like it more than Space Jam is because it feels a little more on brand to the Looney Tunes, and there's a lot of great set pieces that feel so him in it,
yeah, yeah,
as opposed to
exactly.
Space Jam, which as fun as it is just one big commercial.
Yeah, but it's a cool commercial. It's got
But I
Michael
also
Jordan in
but I
it.
also don't care about basketball, so that also doesn't help.
Nobody has to care about basketball to like Space Jams. You just gotta pump
That's
up the
true.
jam, pump it up. And I think that I think Joe Dante brings a really cool perspective on this, because from what I'm reading and what I've looked into research wise, Chris Columbus had a much darker version of this. Literally going into shooting, like more people died. There was a bit where somebody's head gets chopped off and thrown. Like it is like, and the Gremlins are just straight up a lot more violent in the script. And then it seems like Joe Dante and Steven Spielberg, came in and they were like, no, this is a family film with dark overtones, like,
Yeah. They're just like, hey, it could be dark, especially with Spielberg, but come on, give it a twinkle. Just give it a twinkle. Just a little twinkle.
And I think that that's what makes this kind of special, is that there was this like Chris Columbus, like he was trying to make this more violent, more dark, more like crazy, and was being like reined back by the studio and Spielberg and everything, but they still wanted to like do Joe Dante's vision, like, so I think that that's what's interesting here, is that you get this kind of like Chris Columbus being like, yeah, I'm gonna make a fucked up Christmas movie, and then Joe Dante being like, I'm gonna make sure this actually works, and Spielberg being like, I'm gonna make sure this lives forever, like, is basically it. Because it sounds like Spielberg stepped in to make, because it was originally that Gizmo turned into Stripe, the gremlin. It was like,
yeah, that makes sense.
And it was like Gizmo was the bad guy, like he became the main bad guy. And Spielberg was like, no, Gizmo's too cute. You have to make him the hero. And even over Bobby, Spielberg says, is that Bobby's not the real hero. Gizmo is. And they were talking about behind the scenes moment where they shot Bobby and Gizmo opening the blinds to kill Stripe at the end. And then they edited around it so it was just Gizmo who opens it, because Spielberg said that Gizmo was the real hero of this story. And you're like, fair, because I mean, if you look at the family here, like the main family characters, they are absolute fuck ups, like they absolutely are told one thing and then they just don't listen. They just, it's like literally, they just like, I'm not.
To be fair,
listen to this.
It's mostly Bobby and his dad. The mom's fine. Yeah, she's just being a mom. She's just trying her best. It's really the two dudes, unsurprisingly, that are just like, whatever.
And you're just like, oh my fucking God. I will say that that the before we even get further into the plot and everything, the music is absolutely fantastic in this.
The like main theme, as it were, especially as it plays in its entirety throughout the credits, is like one of my favorite horror themes, like top 5. I always listen to the Gremlins theme around Christmas,
because that's really it, is that this is a horror movie when it finally gets to it. When it finally gets to it, it's a straight up horror movie, and you're just like, oh shit. You could definitely feel they're them trying to be like, it's a Christmas movie, trying to shove that in. But I think when you get down to it, it is a straight up horror movie. And the practical effects show it, like.
To be honest, the scariest to me, the scariest thing or like most unnerving thing in the film isn't even anything to do with the gremlins. It's the weird fucking monologue that Phoebe Cates delivers about her dad dead in the chimney.
Oh my god! Oh my god! I was gonna bring that up later. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? Because I'm like,
I always
so I want to
remember
tell
that.
you, I want to like tell you my real experience with the movie because I was trying to like give all the good things with it. I started the movie. I was really into it. I'm like zeroed in. I'm loving what's going on. I think Joe Dante's doing a fantastic job directing it. I love the way all the scenes are so full, and everything feels so lively and full, and Chris Columbus is so purposeful. And then there's this just huge chunk once they bring Gizmo home that is just killing time, baby. They're just fucking like they had no like even with the beginning of the film, they had no fucking urgency. They were just like, this is the way the scene's gonna play out. Here he comes and there he goes. You know, like everything is just happening on screen instead of you know, summing it up somewhere else. It's like they take their time to show it all. And yes, that is fine. That is my problem with this movie, is that I have tried to watch the Gremlins before, and I fell asleep at this exact moment. Once Gizmo started replicating, there's this little bit afterward that is just too relaxing and weird that just puts me to sleep every time. And this time I fought it. I was like this. I was like, and Mary then slapped me awake when I was starting to fall asleep. She was like, don't you fall asleep. You put on Gremlins. And I didn't want to watch Gremlins. And I was like, you're going to watch Gremlins. Like, I was like, we're going to watch Gremlins. Come on. But I was awake for the rest of the movie after that. But like, there's that little bit there in the middle of the film.
Yeah.
It's such a lull. It's a huge lull. And it's one of those things that I was thinking at the end of the movie, I was like, I liked most of that, but there was that huge lull in the middle that like I can't seem to get by. It becomes like a joke to continue, but it becomes Cowboy Bebop, where you're just like, what the like, oh my god, the music's nice, everything looks nice, I'm just kind of slouching back and falling asleep.
Yeah,
you know,
although
like
in Cowboy Bebop's case, I think it's just a matter of like, you know, the show is just so vibes right now.
yeah, that's really it.
The show's so chill. As opposed to like, what are we doing? We've lost all our momentum.
Yes, because that is my thing about this movie, and it's I realize I've seen most of this movie before, you know, like just in clips, but like now seeing it all the way through, is that like my main problem is that lull in the middle. Like, because afterward, you have this complete breakdown of the town. You basically see the town from Back to the Future. Really, it is the town from Back to the Future. It's the Universal backlot. They just dressed it up differently for it, and I love that.
I mean, and it's another movie produced by Spielberg.
Yeah.
And even the actress who played Lorraine's mom in Back to the Future is the mom in this. So you're like, well,
I don't know. You're like, I know, when she came on, I was like, hey, I was like, hey, somebody, you know, like, I know.
I've seen her in a few movies where she was just a mom. It's like her and Dee Wallace always playing the moms.
Exactly. Get typecast a little bit. But basically, there's a lot of fun moments and great practical effects, but it really has all the time in the world when it wants to. And I think that that's my main issue. And it sounds like it was something where, you know, Spielberg was trying to speed it up. Joe Dante was, cutting things, and Chris Columbus cutting things. It's like they did try to streamline it. It just seems to, I don't know. I don't know.
I think it's probably one of those things where, like, just because of that speech alone, that's one of those things that feels like the growing pains between what the movie was intended to be versus what it ended up being.
Because that speech, Joe Dante fought for that. He says that it sums up the movie. And you're like, yeah, it does, because it's so fucked. Like, you know, like, you're just like, damn. Like, it just
Christmas isn't great for everyone.
WB literally came back and was like, people can't tell if it's funny or sad, and Joe Dante was like, that's the fucking point. Like, and Spielberg was like, he basically said it's Joe Dante's movie. I'll leave it, you know, like if he's fighting for that, I'll leave it, you know, like, and I think it's a smart move because it's one of those like small scenes where you're like, what? You know, like it's just it just comes out of like almost nowhere, and I think that's it shows the growing pains, but it also shows the kind of depth that Chris Columbus was going into while making this movie, where you're like damn, dude. Like, you're like, I thought this was just a Christmas movie with some gremlins fucking shit up, but you're just like, hey, but also what happens when you know, like when shit just goes bad, and you're just like, damn, dude. Like, just like, that's fucked up. That is fucked up.
Yeah.
But I think that scene too also sends it more into the horror category, you know, like where it's just like a fucked up backstory that we hear that doesn't,
backstory. Like, the way it's even lit too, it looks like a fucking scene from Black Christmas. You're like, what is happening right now?
What is crazy to me is this movie came out the same day as Ghostbusters, which is first off a crazy fucking weekend at the fucking movies, Gremlins and Ghostbusters. I would have been going to Ghostbusters. You could tell that I would have been like, yeah, let's go fucking go. But also, what a weird duo of like sorta kids movies, but like kind of not at all, like, you know, like the both movies that like have these absolutely horrific scenes at times, you know, like, and you're like, what the fuck?
That's why we needed a rating in the middle.
Yeah,
like you watch any like PG film, all these like PG films prior to the like creation of PG-13 as like that middle ground, all have an edge to them.
Yeah, exactly.
And to be honest, I kind of miss it.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Because one of those things where like one of the PG and G at this point have almost become interchangeable.
Yes, and yeah, exactly, because it's like if you're already going for G, it's like, you know, like, and it's like they don't, and they'll fight for PG so they don't get PG-13 or above, you know, like,
yeah. I mean, there's even some shit that like maybe you would argue shouldn't be G, like Hunchback of Notre Dame somehow got a G rating. At least give it a at least
a woman dies in the first 10 minutes, guys.
like a man kills a mother on the steps of a church. Can we at least give it the P?
You're like, I assume everybody who does the ratings either watches the first 10 minutes of a movie and then rates it, or like watches the entire movie and analyzes it down to the fucking frame. You know, it's no in between. And I think that sometimes happens with those movies. They'll be like, I'll watch like 30 minutes and I'm not actually going to pay attention. PG, you know, like, and they're like, they send the recommendation PG, and then there's their buddy who's like, I watched and there was 2 extra frames of fuck and I will not have it. Like, you know, like we can't have more than 2 frames of fuck. But I think that it's quite interesting because these movies are so wild. Both of them, Ghostbusters and Gremlins, coming out at the same time is crazy. So I was saying the slow pacing, but I do, I do have, another problem is that I think the acting isn't super great. You know, like, it's not, other than the scene, of course, that her like delivering that was great. But I think Bobby's not super good of an actor, and neither is Dad, and neither is Mom.
I think Zach Galligan's a little bit better in the second film, but
so that's the thing is I need to watch 2 now, because I read that even Joe Dante likes 2 more than Gremlins.
I disagree with him. I think the first one is the better film, but 2 is fucking wild. But 2 is also not really a horror movie. It's like, basically, if you loved the scene at the bar with the Gremlins just going
just losing it.
2 is basically that for an entire movie. It's wild.
Which, to be fair, I did think that those were some of the best scenes in the entire movie. I was like, wow, this just keeps going. And I heard there was another behind the scenes thing. Steven Spielberg was getting, notes from WB heads, and they were like, there's too many gremlins in the movie. And he's like, okay, we'll remove the gremlins and we'll just call this movie People. There we go. And you're just like, damn. You're like, he's got a damn good point. You're like, it's called Gremlins. We're showing the fucking gremlins. Like, God damn.
And hey, the practical effects are fantastic. This was all done by Chris Wallace, who also did the practical effects for The Fly, the David Cronenberg Fly.
Damn.
Yeah, he also directed The Fly too. So like, he's all about practical effects.
And I'll give it to Joe Dante. He did it in The Howling, and he does it here. He keeps the special effects in the dark, and he provides a plot point in both movies. He's like, they have to stay in the dark because they're werewolves. And this, he's like, nope, no bright lights, no anything on them, or they, or they die, and that helps the gremlins look good, even though there's a lot of scenes where the gremlins don't look perfect, like they don't look.
Yeah, that's another thing.
But they cover it with the dark a lot, and you're like, perfect.
They definitely get more confident in the second one, because that's when they brought Stan Winston on. So a lot of that film is just straight up in the day, just like at this corporate building, and you're like, okay, you guys are definitely confident about it now.
It's so funny. I think that I think this movie does have, I think we can go, we're saying all the things we love and the things we hate. I do hate how fucking racist this movie is, and I don't mean it in like it's just fine, they're white and ignorant. You're just like, God damn it. With the ending and the beginning just bookended with a maimed Chinese man that they, comes in and does his Chinese magic and leaves. You're just like, this is as bad as a magic black man. Like, this is almost worse. The magic Chinese man. It's like, it's Freaky Friday levels of racist, where you're just like,
you're like, I think they only always just squeeze by, and of course you'd probably get a better opinion from someone of actual Asian descent to see what they would think. But I think they always kind of just squeeze by, because at the end of the day, it always comes down to like, look how fucking stupid these white people are.
Yeah, which, we can all get behind that message. We can always stand behind the message of,
and I also think that
these white people
it helped a little bit that the Asian man who had Gizmo was clearly his grandson, who's very much just a kid, like he has a Yankees hat and everything, so he's not dressed
he's not stereotyped. He's not stereotyped. You're like, okay, I do agree with that, but the whole plot is predicated on this weird Chinese magic that they're kind of going into, and not in any respectful way, it is very just oh, isn't that foreign and weird, isn't that Mogwai, Gizmo, they got all, they're just trying to be like, ha ha ha, look, it's so mysterious. And you're just like, okay, all right.
Dick Miller cracks me up in this film, even though he's an asshole. Just such a grumpy old man set in his ways.
Yes.
The whole just fucking foreign TVs, these foreign cars. You're like, oh God.
He's great though. He's always good in movies.
Dick Miller's always good every time he has a little bit part in something. You're like, hey, I'm glad you're here.
Glad you're here.
He's also in Small Soldiers. I always remembered him from that too. He was the store owner.
Yeah, you're like, wait a minute. And is he in Scrooged? I watched Scrooge recently. No, he's not in Scrooge. But I did watch Scrooge recently, talking about dark Christmas movies. I do think, that Scrooged in Gremlins kind of have this similar vibe in a way of things just going absolutely insane on one night, which I dig, but I definitely like Scrooged more. I'm sorry. I know that a lot of people will be like, Bill Murray just overacts in that movie, and you're like, Bill Murray kills in that movie.
I like Scrooged.
Love Scrooged. It's definitely
But
one of my
an old lady
favorites.
doesn't. But an old lady doesn't fly out of a window in Scrooged.
When they did that, sorry, when they did that, dude, when they sent her out the window, I was like, they just like they implied killed a bunch of people earlier, but that woman is dead. You know, like that. There's no surviving that.
Well,
She
why do you
just
think they
lands
were?
on the ground and her legs don't move, and you're like,
Why do you think they
hmm.
were? Well, I mean, why do you think they were fucking overcompensating so hard at the beginning? We're like, I'm gonna fucking kill your dog.
Yeah.
I
Which,
mean,
by
she
the
even.
way, that was a weird homage to The Wizard of Oz, which I thought was
I mean,
very
she
strange.
even kind of
Like,
dies with like her feet up too.
yeah, which was like,
You're
I'm
like,
like,
huh?
so she
Okay.
was just the Wicked Witch of the West. Like, I was just like, wait, what? Like, she was just the Wicked Witch of the East. Like, what the fuck? I don't understand. You know, like, which, yeah, is it the West, East, whatever.
I think it's West because of the
Yes,
alliteration.
yes, exactly. And it's one of those things where you're like, what? Why are we? What's going on? You know, when they do that, like, kind of like full on, straight up, just like, I'll get you and your dog, you know, too. You know,
I also
like,
think it like tries too hard. Like one of the things that cracks me up about the Wizard of Oz is just how matter of fact the woman who's supposed to be the parable for the Wicked Witch of the West is at the
yeah.
beginning. Just like, your dog bit me. I'm taking it into town to have it destroyed. You're like, what?
Jesus Christ. Yeah, right.
just the just the way it comes out so casually. Not even like I'm gonna have him put down. I'm gonna have him put to sleep. I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna have him destroyed.
Destroyed. You're like, oh, what the fuck? And I mean, I think it's funny that I was saying the true hero of this story is Gizmo, but the real true hero of this story is the dog. What's his name? Benny. It's something with a B.
One of those.
It's like he stops he's the one who comes in at the end and is able to like stop the Stripe, and he's basically the Superman of the plot because they take him out because they know he would have stopped everything. They're like, no, we got to move the dog out of the plot with the dad, and then you know, like,
Yeah.
and then things won't get solved by just
certified good boy.
He's certified
movie.
good boy.
But going back to the criticisms of the acting, I do know what you mean. I get that they were trying to go for like he's just a good boy. He's just like the doe-eyed boy next door, and it just doesn't really fly. I think it's corrected a little bit in the second one because they're out of the suburbs, like they're in the city.
Yeah.
He has a corporate job now. He's grown up a little bit, so it's a less like, oh, I'm just a little guy.
Just a little guy. It's okay. I know. It's one of those things where they're obviously going for, you know, the Marty McFly, you know, like, which wasn't even out yet, so they didn't even know, but like they're basically going for that, and I don't think it plays as well here, you know, like I don't like the main character as much as I think they were trying to make me like him, you know, like I was just other than I like that he was just like, I'm going to blow up this theater. Like, let's go. That's the only solution. Like,
you know what part of the problem might be is that he might seem like he's acting younger than his character is.
Yeah, I think so.
It's one of those things because I'm thinking about the way he's characterized, and it seems like it would slot in a little better if the actor was just younger and they were going for a young kid, not like a young adult who already has a job, like maybe a teenager or a tween or something.
Yeah, and it's like, of course, you know, it's okay to have, be sloppy later. I'm just saying that it doesn't exactly, I don't know, the way he's even with the Wicked Witch scene, he's like, what? What are you gonna do? You know, like, and you know, and she's like, I'm gonna take him downtown, you know, like, and you're just like, why is he asking? You know, like, what's going on here? Like, but it's fine. It's fine. It is fine. I do think that's because I let it all go because it is a horror movie, you know, like basically, and it is more about Gizmo and the Gremlins, you know, like it really is. And they and I think that's what's so fun about this is that there's so much danger in this plot, you know, like in a lot of our movies, you know, like there's danger, but nobody gets hurt, and it's just kind of like thumbs up at the end of the day, it's like a plot armor for everybody. Gremlins doesn't give a shit about plot armor, they just fucked everyone up. Everyone gets their ass handed to them. It's like, I love the scene where the cops are sitting in the car and they're like, that was Mrs. What's her name, and they're like, and that was this, and they're just sitting there watching it all go down, and then they try to drive away, and the Gremlins already took it, and you're like, perfect. Like,
I've seen Gremlins a million times. It took me until this watch to realize that not the sheriff, but the other one was fucking Jonathan Banks.
Yeah.
It's just like, is that fucking a young Jonathan Banks? Like, Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, Jonathan Banks? Wow, I'd never recognize him. Look how young, look at him. He's a baby.
He's a baby. Like, exactly. He's a little one. I bring that up with like the real danger because the main character gets shot by a crossbow at the end, almost gets chopped up by Texas Chainsaw Massacre style with a chainsaw, which they admitted they were just doing. That wasn't even in the script. The chainsaw, that was just an homage to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I'm like, Joe Dante, what the? He's just like, yeah, of course, throw it in there.
I mean, all men have taste like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's fine.
Exactly. I will say that when Mary was watching it, she was like, so it's kind of pre-Minions, which I hated that comparison, but it is.
No, it's not the first time I've heard something like that. Although it is, I mean,
because Minions don't
decade,
kill people, and
that's true.
They cause chaos by their stupidity, not like literal just chaos makers like the Gremlins are.
It's not an apt comparison, but it is a little reductive because it's really just the equivalent that like every couple of years or so, we always have that.
Yes.
The like cute, feisty creature,
devious creature. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be Gremlins, it could be the Minions. In video games, it could be the fucking Rabbids.
Yep, exactly. And, some people like identify with that sort of, that's why I think it does well, they're like, they think it's fun, and kids dig it because they're always up to, trouble, you're like, oh, they're always up to something, and you're just like,
and they make funny noises.
And they make funny noises. Now, I do... the reason why I say I don't like the Minions comparison is because Gremlins are actually dangerous. The Minions are just not, they're just basically the foot soldiers of whatever bad guy that is there, and they're just going to get fucked up. And they're also, the comedy's not good. I hate Minions. If you're listening and you thought I would like Minions, I fucking hate any Minions thing. No.
I also can't stand anything Minions related and have still not seen anything Despicable Me related because I don't like the Minions.
No,
I've never even seen the first, not even the first one. Everything Minions related, I'm like, fuck off, leave me alone.
No, it's a terrible movie. It's Steve Carell's pretty good in it. It's a bad movie. I won't even fucking. All the Despicable Me's are bad. But what I'm trying to say though is that this has actual teeth. It has actual urgency and danger behind these characters. So that's why I say no to the pre-Minions, other than that they talk sort of, like.
So you're telling me that a Minion wouldn't be put in a blender or a microwave in a Minions movie?
I hope so. I actually would. See, that's the thing. I want to see those Minions die, and they never do that in those movies. They don't fucking murder them, and you're just kind of like, you got millions of them. Come on. Kill Bob the Minion once. Come on, just fucking put him in a blender. But really, yeah, I think that's the other great thing about this is that there is no other solution to this plot. There is no, I was sitting there going, I'm doing my script brain where I'm going, okay, so what's the solution they're going to find? Are they going to bring back the magic Chinese man and try to sum it up that way where he will be able to bring them under control? Nope, that's not the solution. Murder, violence, destruction. That's the solution. I really do love that part of this movie. I will say that is that I love that there's no other fucking solution. There's no like put him back in the bag. There's no like
Put him back in the bag, like
close a box, find a special thing.
Cure Stripe with friendship and make him turn back into a Mogwai. So like
Yes.
everyone else turns back into a Mogwai. It's like the fucking Phantom Menace thing where like it affects everything else for some reason.
Exactly. And you're just like, I was sitting there going, okay, so is that the solution? And then when they did the theater scene and he's downstairs lighting the theater on fire, I was like, oh my God, the solution is only murder in this movie. I was like, oh my God, they're literally just going to kill them all. Like, I was like, holy fuck. Like,
they don't make them like they used to.
No, they don't. Because like what kid horror movie, like the solution is just murder them, you know? Like if the end of Jumanji was just them going around shooting all the animals that were released, that would be a different movie, you know? Like, and this is like, it's kind of Jumanji, but like they decide to kill all the things, you know? And you're just like, fuck, like, Jesus, that's crazy. I mean, I do love it though. Like just stabbing gremlins, throwing them into blenders, shooting them, blowing them up. The final melt of Stripe
is amazing.
Amazing. That definitely turned me around a ton on the movie. Was that just that scene of him moving as the skeleton on the floor made me be like, oh damn, I might forgive those 20 minutes, which were kind of a lull. Like I'll forgive that a little bit
feel
more.
About like the more violent moments like that?
She was like, shit, because it was just one of those things. I was like, oh my God, they're gonna kill him. Like she didn't really care too much. Is really it. It's that she was not into it, and I was like, that's fair. Like because it's I don't know. It's a weird. It's a weird movie. I will say that. It is even Joe Dante says he doesn't know why it's still popular. You know, like he's like, I don't know why it's so enduring. And I mean, I think it's obvious is that Spielberg understood. He was like, Gizmo's the hero. Gizmo's cute as fuck. And Gizmo saves the day. And that fucking makes this movie last forever, you know, and the straight up great practical effects, you know, like that's just gonna, I feel like, in a world where CGI is everywhere, Gremlins is amazing.
That's my concern because there are always like rumblings every couple of years about them trying to get another one off the ground. I'm just like, you give me CG Gremlins, you can kiss my ass.
I think they did. Did they do one called Gremlin that was like sort of a loose adaptation of it? Like not exactly.
No, I know there's like an animated series coming out soon, but like that's a whole different thing.
Oh, it's a different movie. No, they did sort of remake it in 2000. It's I don't think it's authorized or anything, but I think that it's called Gremlin, and wow, Jesus Christ, it's kind of a straight horror movie version, and the monster inside the box is more of a rejected monster design for The Thing, which I love.
Okay.
It's free on Crackle. It's got a 3.8 on IMDb. I am not recommending that. I'm not saying
it's going to be a masterpiece to watch.
It's going to be a masterpiece. They are saying Gremlins 3 in 2023. So next year, a sequel to Gremlins. So you were just saying, and then they have it. They have a poster here with an official release date of 12/25/23. Oh, and from the director of West Side Story. What? Oh my goodness. And I guess it was supposed to be a fresh reboot, but then Carl Ellsworth came on as writer and was like, fuck that sequel. And you know what? Good for you, Carl. You're the fucking champ, dude.
But if those Gremlins are CG, I'm going to be upset.
Yeah, I was going to say I think that's a lot of the charm of this movie is the actual practical effects. And if you did a bunch of CGI ones, it would not work.
Yeah, especially since like a big novelty of the second film is really just an excuse to make any type of gremlin they want.
Yes, right? You're just like, the weird part to me about this Gremlins 3, though, they say from the director of West Side Story, and the director of West Side Story is Steven Spielberg. So is Steven Spielberg
Are they
directing
talking about the
fucking
original
Gremlins
West Side
3?
Story?
That would be wild. I don't
Because
think
there was
they're
the
saying that.
original film, but also I feel like if it was Spielberg, they would just fucking say it as opposed to like, yeah,
Right.
the only
From the
thing Spielberg's
director
known
of
for,
West
right?
Side Story.
West Side Story, as opposed to all this other shit.
Exactly. You're like, what the fuck? So, I mean, I like the practical effects, and they also use some stop motion in certain parts, and I think that
Yep.
that looks really good. They were thinking only stop motion for a bit, but they were like, nah, animatronics.
I'm glad they didn't. Like stop motion is a tricky one in an otherwise live action film. Like you need to be careful about it.
So another behind the scenes story that I read that was actually really great is that they were like, okay, stop motion would be too much for most of the movie. So do we do puppets or do we do a monkey in a suit? And they were like, oh, well, let's test the monkey. And I guess the minute they put they did a test at the WB offices, the minute they put the Gremlins mask on the monkey fucking freaked out and defecated and destroyed everything in the room. And while Joe Dante was yelling at the trainer to like stop the monkey, he turned to the producer and said, "So puppets?" Like, and you're like, yeah, okay, like, yep. I mean, what a different movie this would have been with like monkeys wearing fucking costumes. That would have been insane. But also kind of loops back to our Nope conversation where you're like, yeah, that would have been a terrible idea for everyone on set because you're putting a mask on a monkey. What the fuck? That's not. No, you can't mask up a monkey. You know? Like, it's going to freak out, and if you're doing hundreds of them on set, that's not good. You know, like that's not.
Probably not the safest thing you could do.
Oh my god, you're just like, what the fuck? I think that I was gonna say that you know that the puppets and the animatronics are so good pretty much the whole time, and that's what makes a movie even now look good. You know, like that's what they understood in the 80s, that it doesn't matter if it you know, CGI is cheap or anything. They made sure it looked good, you know, so it didn't fucking look bad forever.
Even when it, relative to the time, doesn't look all that great, people will defend it because it's actually there and they shot it.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same
Which
thing
is
as
something I always have to
Thing.
like remember. It's just like not all practical effects were good.
Yeah, not all.
Like
of
there
them
were bad animatronics existed, but it was there. They shot it on camera.
Yeah. And I guess the Gremlins were super expensive, 30 to 40,000 a Gremlin, and they checked everybody's cars when they were leaving set every day because they were concerned somebody would just steal a $30,000 Gremlin off set. And you're like, fair, like because that could just walk
smart.
away.
Yeah, dude, that's already a lot of money before it became an iconic film. After it becomes an iconic film and the collector's market pops up years after the fact, someone makes fucking bank, especially if it's well preserved.
Yeah, absolutely. You're like, holy shit. Now, I thought that was so interesting. I was like, of course, that you know, they were spending 30,000-40,000 every Gremlin. You're like, holy fuck.
And I mean, it shows, and at least they use them. Just like, we spend so much fucking money on these things, we're gonna stick at the bar for a while and just watch them be silly and stupid and scary, and we're not cutting. Realize how much these fucking things cost. And I mean, the money shows because they're so well articulated most of the time.
Yeah, they really are. And they do some fantastic movements that you're like, holy shit, that was an animatronic. Or even if it was a puppet, you're like, holy fuck, that was crazy. You know, like, I even love, you know, Gizmo was not supposed to be, you know, a big part of the second half of the movie. Like they said, it was Spielberg being like, he's the hero, you know, like he's the real one. So the designer never made Gizmo to be even more articulate, you know, can do more things. He only made him to do all the actions in the first half of the movie. So when you see him in the second half, he's most of the time just being carried or wandering around, and that's why they used the car at the end for him driving around, because he couldn't run. So they were like put him in the car so that way he doesn't have to do much and he can move around his normal ways and look good in the car,
That makes a lot of sense. That kind of reminds me of all things Bride of Chucky.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the Chucky doll versus the Tiffany doll, one's got a lot more attention. Like, Bride of Chucky has the best animatronics of the franchise. Like, Chucky can emote, express.
Wow.
It's so expressive. It looks great. I wish they had kept that puppet. And that was the one that they used for like the subsequent films in the TV show, because it's never looked as good as that puppet.
Yeah.
Tiffany looks like the first 3 movies, and you can tell. It's just like, no, this is the star. You're the new one, so you're not going to get as much attention.
I love that shit. Now, I do want to say, like, kind of to sum it up, it's a fun Christmas movie. It's a fun horror movie. There's like 20 to 30 minutes that don't need to be in this as much as it needs, as much as time as they spend on it is basically my
and
thing.
It doesn't seem, and I don't think it's going to bother most people.
No, I would say it wouldn't bother most people. I would say most people will just kind of be like, meh, like, because it is very horror movie tropey to like kind of lose 20 minutes in the middle, like it is very, it's a trope.
Dead Dad in the Chimney speech will definitely wake him up a little bit. Just like, what the fuck did she just say?
What the fuck? I know, when she was saying it, I was like, what the fuck is she saying? Like, it was such a twist moment. It sort of reminded me of Sleepaway Camp with its twist ending. For some reason, it was like such a whiplash.
Just such a pivot.
That I was like, what the fuck? Like they reminded me of that it was just like such a pivot, like such a.
That's why I love Sleepaway. I mean, Sleepaway Camp would not be as infamous as it was, or wouldn't be such a cult favorite were it not for that ending.
And I think that's my argument for that scene. I think Joe Dante is completely in the right for keeping that scene in, because I think that's the one scene I'm gonna fucking remember from this movie, other than like the bar scene, them blowing up the, and of course Stripe coming at him with the chainsaw. I fucking was like, yeah, okay.
And fucking melting.
Yeah, and the melting scene. Like, that's the thing, is there is a lot of memorable scenes here, and I think that's why this has endured a long time, but also hasn't gotten a huge amount of love, because it is weird. It's a horror movie, and if you're not into horror movies, this is a horror movie, like it's not like,
it's
and
like
I
one
think
of those things where like it's good and it worked, but also sort of lightning in a bottle. It's fortunate that the sequel even worked. Not one of those things that's easy necessarily to build a franchise around.
I am very excited to watch 2 now, because people have kind of talked it up and have talked up the animatronics also, so I'm kind of like, okay, I'm down to watch 2 now.
Just go in knowing that it's not a horror movie. It is a fucking cartoon, and it's great.
Which I am more for than this weird dark comedy mix that's going on here. Which is
sort of like patchwork.
Yeah, it's sort of patchworky, but like at the same time, I do want a comic of Chris Columbus's like original Gremlins. I do want that. I want like
that'd be cool.
I want Sean Patrick Murphy doing the art, and he's gonna do Gremlins, the original script, Christopher Columbus. Like, I would fucking buy that in a heartbeat, because it is. I feel like that even darker version that Chris Columbus was trying to push would be interesting to see. Like that. Like, and it makes the thing about the sequel being more cartoony is it makes me even scared for Gremlins 3. I'm even more scared for Gremlins 3 now that we both know what's happening. Because you're just like, first off, the CGI's they're gonna use CGI, which sucks. And then they're absolutely just gonna try to lean into more of the fun of Gremlins 2 than being the weird like Christmas horror movie that it is. Which I think that's what makes it memorable, and the reason why people watch it every Christmas is because it is weird, like it is strange, and you're just like, okay, because even just the scene where Gizmo's sitting there boiling with the eggs popping off his back What a weird fucking scene. Like, what the fuck? Like, I remember I was sitting there and I was just like, that looks like it's out of The Thing, you know, with its bubbling. You're just like, oh, Jesus Christ, what is this movie? Because it definitely, if you went in completely blind, I don't know how you'd come out, you know? Like, if you didn't know about the, you know, years and years of, now over 30 years of,
iconography and merch and whatnot.
Yeah, it's like you would just go in and you would get this like weird Chinatown scene at the beginning. Then you're like, oh, it's a Christmas movie. He's getting Christmas presents, and then it just lulls for a bit while they introduce the town, and then destroys the town. You know, like and it's just like it's one of those like weird things that if you're able to go in blind, I can see why it was so a hit. You know, at the time, because it is such a weird. Just, I don't even know how you advertised it, really. You know, like, it is just a weird fucking movie.
I agree with you on the comic notion, though, and kind of just want that to become more of a trend. Just like taking unused versions of like film scripts. I'm sure there's a bunch of red tape surrounding it, which is why it doesn't happen often. Yeah. But just like unused, way alternate versions of movies we never got, just becoming comics or becoming audio dramas.
Yes, like we're getting with Batman 88, you know, 89. You're just
89.
like, all right,
well,
89.
That's a different thing. That's more like actually picking up from where Returns left off.
True.
As if Tim Burton directed the other movies after the first two.
Which Steven Spielberg wanted Tim Burton to direct this movie at the time when he had seen Frankenweenie, and, you know, had seen his, you know, writing on other movies. But at the time, Tim Burton hadn't directed a feature film. He hadn't done Pee Wee Herman yet. So, or Batman. So Tim Burton was unproven and didn't get the job of Gremlins, and it went to Joe Dante, which I think is fucking hilarious, because that movie would have been something else with Tim Burton behind it. I'm just like, I'm like, Jesus Christ, this would have been something else with him behind it, you know, like almost more horrifying. But like, you could kind of see the movie, like you could see what Spielberg was doing there. You know, you watch that bar scene and you're like, this could have been in a Tim Burton movie, you know, this could have been in, you know, Beetlejuice, you know, like this is like, I could see why, you know, like,
there just would have been way more Danny Elfman and a lot of stripes. There would have been stripes everywhere.
Yeah, stripes everywhere.
Pinstripes everywhere.
But overall, I think that even though I don't particularly fall in love with this movie, I don't have any nostalgia for it. So I know people are going in with a lot of nostalgia goggles. I do like the horror elements. I do like its weirdness. But am I being like Gremlins? No, you know, like I'm not fully in love with this, but I did have a good time. But it's a thing where I think it's often when we disagree on a movie, it's because I'm unforgiving on them wasting time. You know, like it's like I think you'll forgive it more than I will forgive it, you know, like, cause I'm just like, God fucking damn it.
Yeah. It's always a different perspective when you're like coming in with no attachment.
Yes.
I mean, I get into arguments about this all the time with like other shit, like Avatar: The Last Airbender, which I didn't watch until I was an adult. So it's like, no,
did you see
I got some criticisms for it.
Did you see they announced today that they're going to do another TV show that's the next Avatar after Korra?
Yeah, I can't wait for people to complain about it, like they did with Korra.
Yes.
Like they say they want it, they're going to hate it the entire time it airs.
Exactly. I feel like the Avatar: The Last Airbender fan base is a little bad like that, where you're just really like they're excited about it, but they're angry about it. I mean, they've been jilted. They got a terrible live action movie, you know.
Get over it. It was years ago.
Yeah, but it was awful. It sure was bad.
Yeah, I had one for my thing. It was worse.
Wait, which one are you talking about?
The Dragon Ball Evolution. But here's the thing, like,
yes, true.
But here's the thing, I moved on. I forget it exists until someone brings it up.
Sorry, Dragon Ball Evolution is fucking bad. You're just like,
but it did give us the Dragon Ball comeback. The reason why Toriyama got more heavily involved with the writing of Battle of Gods and then pretty much everything after that was because of Evolution. We're just like, no, we gotta get back to the actual brand.
But I I like that reaction more than Alan Moore just being like, I fucking hate you guys. I'm going back to my cave. Fuck you. Like, it's just like, he's like, comes out of his cave to be like, fuck you. I hated that. And then goes back to his cave. You know, like, Toriyama's like, fuck you. How dare you ruin my shit? And then makes good shit. You know, like.
That's the thing I have to always bring up with people is that, guys, Alan Moore hasn't watched any of the adaptations of his work post League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. So yeah, he'll talk shit about it, but he's never actually seen any of these.
Which, like, I love. My guilty pleasure movie is League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I know it's bad. But I fucking love that movie. I'll watch it anytime you put it on.
You know, between
but I see why
Van
Alan
Helsing,
Moore hated it. You know, like I see why he fucking hated it.
You know what it is, Frank? Between that and our love for like Van Helsing and like the Frankenstein comics from DC, I think you and I are just so fucking starved for like a big universal monster like crossover thing. Like what they tried to do with the Dark Universe. Just like it's literally what we want. We're just so starved for that premise, and no one seems to be doing it.
You're like, so just put my horror monsters together. That's all I want. Just put all the horror monsters together.
That's what like a homebrew campaign has turned into for me. Like I'm supposed to be the DM for like this big monster mash campaign, and it turned into like it went from like, oh, this will be fun to me having like a pages after pages after pages on a Google Doc being like, no, I'm doing this. This is going to be my love letter to the Universal monsters. This is going to be my criticism of this genre of horror. It turned into a whole thing because I can't get it anywhere else. So I have to make it.
Yeah, you have to do it.
Campaign.
I'll do it myself. I love that, dude. That's so funny. That was my problem with Wolf. Wolf after what was that Marvel movie that they did at Halloween?
Werewolf by Night.
Werewolf by Night is that I know that is like Marvel Comics' love letter to like the Universal monster movies, and then that movie was just like one werewolf, one man thing, and that's it. That's the monsters. And you're like, wait, no, like more. Like, I know this was just for TV, but more, you know, like you're just like,
I mean, we're about due for a good werewolf movie anyway, just period. You can't just survive on the original Wolfman and Ginger Snaps and the Howling and American Werewolf in London. You're like, oh, you got those.
Got those.
We got those.
We got those. That's all that matters. That's it. It's so true, though. You're like, you can't be like, I'm a werewolf movie genre fan. You're like, what? Do you like 3 movies? Fuck you. What are you know, like, what are you saying?
Same thing with like steampunk fans. Just like, oh, do you just like it for the cosplay? Because there's no Blade Runner for steampunk.
Steamboy was Blade Runner for steampunk.
Thing is in video games. Like I think BioShock.
True. BioShock might have been their moment. They were like, it's time. We're mainstream, baby. Like, it's happening. We're moving on up. Steampunk, baby. Which, by the way, I do have all of those on Steam now. And they give you every version of those. Like, they're like, here's the unmastered and here's the remastered, you know, for every one of those games. And you're like,
I like that. I think
nice.
especially on a digital storefront like that, I think that should be an option because
Because what are you going to charge me $1 for the non-remastered version now? You know,
and sometimes even if it's fairly 1-to-1, there sometimes are changes made to a remaster, even if they try to make it as close as possible that people don't dig.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, hey, I want to still be able to play the original the way I.
That's what I'm going through. That's what I'm going through right now with the Crisis Core remake. Where it's just like this. It's pretty much 1-to-1 with better graphics, but the new voice actors suck.
That's so funny. You're playing Crisis Core. Fucking hell. Fucking love Crisis Core. That's hilarious. Okay. Summing it up. Gremlins. Enduring horror movie, Christmas movie. Which I'm always down for a horror Christmas movie. You know, I'm a fan of Black Christmas.
That was part of the reason why I also wanted to do this, to make up for the fact that we didn't do as many horror episodes this year.
Which I do want to watch. Speaking of horror Christmas movies, I do want to watch Violent Night. With
David Harbour. From what I've heard, the advertising is a little misleading. It's less a horror movie and more just an action film.
Well, I'm still okay with that.
No, it's fine. Apparently, it is really good, but that's one of the things you're like, don't feel like you've been cheated because it's not really a horror movie. That's just the way it's being marketed. It's really just an action film where David Harbour kicks some asses, like dressed as Santa.
As
like,
Santa.
Okay, sure.
Which Santa kicking ass always sounds to me like the Japanese trying to understand Christmas, like they're like, yes, Santa is a giant robot that fights our giant robots, and you're like, what?
Just everyone gets the Supaida man like treatment, like logic's just like, yes, giant robots, giant
robots for Santa. Because I was reading a whole thread today that was like like the Japanese inserting Santa into things. It was just like it was just a bunch of like crazy shit where they were just like, what, Santa, like, and then it's like Santa's the bad guy or something like that, like he's ripped out like whipping a nunchuck around, like, and you're like, what like
everyone
I
else find it fucking weird that like Santa just shows up in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Yes.
Even as a kid, I'm like, reading the book, I was like, what?
That's because as kids we didn't know is C.S. Lewis, like #1 Catholic writer of all time, like he's like, yes, I will drench this in Catholicism, and you're like,
yeah. There's a great meme about that where it's like Tolkien, I despise allegory and all its implications, and C.S. Lewis, if people don't realize that the lion is Jesus, I'm going to cry.
It's so true, though. It's so true. Oh my god, I fucking love it.
But Gremlins.
For me,
it's a classic. I do agree that the law of the middle is a thing and could turn off some people. I don't think most people are gonna mind.
No, I don't think most people. I think I'm nitpicky, like,
and if you grew up a kid like me who loved like horror movies and stuff and scoff at anyone who's just like, oh, that you shouldn't be watching that. That's for adults. Blah 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 blah. Then it's a good watch. Like if you were a kid who were raised on horror movies anyway, and you like a nice alternative to the usual, like more ham-fisted stuff, then it's a good alternative.
Exactly. I think that's kind of the fun of this, is that it is a horror Christmas movie, which is not, there is a lot of them. There is a lot, like, but this one is more. It's almost more Christmas than horror movie at a lot of times, and I think that's what makes it endearing, like endearing and enduring, like it's like people like that part of it, and then that's the reason why it's lasted so long, it's not, it is well loved because people think of Christmas when they think about it, like they're just, even though it's a straight up horror movie, like you're just like, oh, okay, all right. I have been watching a lot of horror movies this Christmas. I don't know why. We've been slamming through a bunch of horror movies. I don't know what the hell that's about, but that's just what we've been doing. Like, so this kind of like all fits in with it, you're just like, all right, sounds good. Now, guys, thank you so much for even listening. I know it's Christmas, or it's Christmas week that you guys are listening to this, or it's the day before Christmas Eve. So even if you're listening at all, thank you. Thank you for taking your time out of your very busy schedule to listen to us speak eloquently about the Gremlins. And I want to say that
philosophical about these animatronic green creatures.
Exactly. And I want to just say I'm thankful for everyone who supports the show, and everyone who's even just watched it one time. I'm thankful for you guys for supporting us, so we can
sticking with us.
Yeah,
especially since we've been taking a lot of time off.
But it's don't worry, we are gonna keep pushing this out. We are gonna keep going. I did check, Gremlins is not on the AFI Top 100 list, so we were not doing the AFI Top 100 list this time. But maybe it should be. No, no, it should not be. No, it should not be. But we will be we will be back to the AFI Top 100. Don't worry. But before we do that, I'm sure the next episode we do will be our yearly wrap-up episode. So we usually do a what
sort
we
of like
watched
year
and
in
played.
retrospect, year in review, etc.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk about all the fucking books I read this year.
I think it will be our third time doing a yearly wrap-up video, I think with this.
So, yeah.
I think with Warp Shelf, I think it's our third time doing it. So I do enjoy it because it's something that we work for the entire year. We watch a ton of movies, and right now on the TV and movie list, I'm at 146 with Gremlins. So I'm gonna try to get past 150 titles for the year before the end of the year, and then we'll have an episode where we kind of go through all the games, movies, TV shows, everything that for the 2023 that we watched, and
talk about like the
enjoyed.
best stuff we experience in different media.
Yeah, we're not going to just talk about 2023 stuff because there's older stuff we watched too. You can't just only watch.
I write down anything that I've like watched this year. I don't add it to the list if I've watched it more than once, as in like that year.
Yeah.
Like if I watched a horror movie once this year, like I watched Pearl in theaters, and then I watched it again to do with like the 30 movies with Alex. I didn't list it twice. I could just have it on the list one time.
Yeah, and I was not putting any rewatches on my list either, so I think the list would be longer if I included all the movies that I watched again. But that's not. I think it's about the new experience that we're writing down. So that's the important part. But guys, thank you for supporting the show. Hit that subscribe button down below for more episodes of this podcast, either on YouTube or any of the audio platforms you're listening on. Be sure to check out, I've been live streaming. I've been doing a live stream show called Yep, It's Gundam with Yep Gundam. That's also on this channel and on GalaxyGeek.com. If you go to GalaxyGeek.com, you can see all episodes of the Warp Shelf podcast and all these new live streams. And I've been liking it. I'm doing it. I do a different setup than this podcast. So if you're like, oh, is it just the same background and Frank, you're building gun? No, I have a building desk. It's over there. And we have a shot down. Yesterday, I unboxed a Ben Presto Gundam figurine. So it wasn't a kit to build. It was like a figure, which was weird for me to open a figure kit and it just be done. I was like, oh, shit. I was like, shit, I didn't even have to slap these things together. Damn.
I have two. I have a Goku, Vegeta, and a Vegito behind me, probably obscured from view, that are Band Presto.
They're Band Presto. Nice. They're nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice.
They're a solid, fairly affordable brand for like good like statues and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Especially for anime.
Mine was like 25, and I've seen a lot of other Band Prestos, and they're like 25. So that's not bad. Like that's I'll take that over a $50 figurine. Like you're like, damn, shit, I didn't want to spend that. You're like, fuck, didn't mean to do that.
You spend way more than that on other stuff just separately, so it gives you the illusion that you're saving money.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah,
it's the same logic with fucking TV show versus movies. Like, I'm not watching a 2-hour movie. I'll watch 6 hours of TV though at home.
Exactly. I know everyone being like, I'm not gonna go see Avatar. That's 3 hours in the movie theater, and you're like, you what? You told me you finished White Lotus.
In one day.
You finished White Lotus in one day. What are you talking about? But which we'll have to do a White Lotus episode at some point. That'll be fun. But guys, thank you so much for supporting the show. Be sure to check out what.
It just hit me since you were talking about White Lotus. Also, potential next episode. I think today or tomorrow. Glass Onion is out on Netflix.
Oh shit! No, it's today. It's the 23rd, right? Yeah, it's today. Today's Glass Onion, baby. That either it's going to be the year in review for the next episode, or it's going to be Glass Onion, because we love Rain Johnson in this household. In this household, we stand Rain Johnson. Ryan.
Love him so much, you keep calling him Rain.
I keep calling him the wrong fucking name. Because I'm terrible with names.
And to be fair, though, his Ryan is spelled weird. It's like, why are you trying to be different? Put a Y in that bitch.
It's his parents. Just like, all right. But guys, thank you. Check out me, Yep Frank on Twitter, all the social medias. I'm Yep Frank everywhere, and Deshaun.
Mod Karika everywhere.
And basically, guys, thank you so much. I hope you have a fantastic holidays, a Merry Christmas, a Happy Kwanzaa, a Happy Hanukkah, happy whatever you're celebrating, Festivus for the rest of us.
Yep.
Which my doctor gave me a slip that said he had given to the Human Fund, the fund that George gives to in the Festivus episode, and I was my doctor's so dry. I was just like, thank you. Like I was like, okay. Like, but he's like handed it to me right when we were like trying to end the meeting. He was like, oh wait, hold on, I gave to the Human Fund, and I was like, what? I was like, wait, what? And I was like, oh, okay, all right, never mind. But guys, sorry. Thank you so much. Thank you for supporting the show, and I hope you have a great holidays and a great rest of your week.
See you next time.
Bye.